This is The Close-Up. Conversations about creativity. From our studios in Los Angeles, here is Jim Chabin.
Welcome to The Close-Up. Victoria Alonso from Marvel is here. She's the studio's Executive Vice President of Visual Effects and Post-Production. She served as executive producer on a remarkable series of box office hits, including Avengers, Age of Ultron, Iron Man, Guardians of the Galaxy, Captain America, and Thor. The studio's recent hit, Ant-Man, was the 12th consecutive Marvel movie to be #1 at the box office on its opening weekend. Welcome, Victoria.
12 movies in a row.
I was talking to our director before the show. We saw Ant-Man. There is a mood in an audience at an IMAX on the opening night of a Marvel movie. There's a tension or a mood in the audience. And if I had to come up with a word, it's trust. It's this sense that we as the audience are turning over ourselves to the magicians that are about to present this movie. How do you feel about that relationship you have? Because you can feel it. It's unlike any other, I think.
It's frightening because you don't want to let them down. It's a lot of responsibility, and I think that's one of the key reasons why we work so relentlessly to make sure that every stone gets turned. There's not one stone that gets unturned. Within the time that we have allowed, we go at it and we go at it. And I always say that our process is pretty erosive, and I think that's sort of the best way to describe it, like the same way that wind and sun and water sort of erodes on a coast. We sort of go at it to our stories. We just try, we are pretty tough with each other in the room. It's a hard room to stay in as filmmakers and storytellers. If you don't have thick skin, it's hard because we don't code it. We don't sugarcoat any of it. It's like, that doesn't work. That doesn't work. That pretty much sucks. We have to do something. That doesn't work. That doesn't, if you have thin skin, it's hard to take. But we think every movie we do is the last one. We think, I always say, Stanley Kubrick used to say, they haven't found us out yet. And every night when I leave the office, I go, they haven't found us out yet. So we have a little Kubrick moment, and we just work.
How long do you work on the story before the actual production begins?
Well, we usually have anywhere between 6 to 9 months of pre-production, but just because the movie says there's a release date doesn't mean there's no additional thinking that has gone into how some of these storylines are interlaced with the cinematic universe. A lot of these characters have relationships in other films, so I would say there's a lot of thinking and not enough. I think you can never think it too long for something that we hope is like the greatest story to come. 9 months feels like a long time to prep a movie, but unfortunately, these movies are so large that I wish we had more time.
And how visual effects is the DNA of a Marvel movie. So at what point are you?
Day one.
Day one.
Day one.
And how do you approach each project to make it different from the last one or the next one?
Well, I approach it with the same gusto as you do any of them. There's not one thing we can't do, not one. When people say, can you, yes. Yes, it's the yes department. Can you do it within the amount of time and the amount of money that is there? Perhaps not. But can we do it? Of course. If it hasn't been done, it means nothing. We, on a daily basis, do things that haven't been done. So yes, the answer is yes, we can do it. Now let's try and figure out how does it fit within our plan for that particular story.
And how many people on your team, how many different hands will touch the visual effects and the post-production process of a Marvel movie?
I would say it's an average of 2,000, 2,500 average, but we've had up to 5,000 people worldwide.
And they're all over the world?
All over the world.
And how do you communicate with this entire team of yours?
Smoke signals. We pretty much have figured out a way to try and stay in communication, because what we wanted is to get more time out of the day, which you can once you have Asia working with you, Europe working with you, Australia, New Zealand working with you. So you sort of get 36 hours on the day. The problem is you have to communicate 24 hours, living 24 hours for those 36 hours to actually be tight and give you the efficiencies that you need. So we have a pretty well-scheduled communication system with cinesyncs and calls and emails and sending all kinds of feedback. We're not always dead on in the 24-hour period, but we try to.
So no matter where you are in the process, there are people all over the world working on it around the clock.
Around the clock.
And then you look at the work as it comes in to say, I like this needs more, or...
Consistently. And sometimes, you only leave the office for 4 or 5 hours and you come back and it's there. In the sense that we've been there 20 hours, you leave for 4, you come back and it's morning time because it's the end of the day elsewhere. So we try to have, the idea of working globally, I think it has been a great friend to these kind of movies, and also a great detriment, because there was a time where without having the global access, you couldn't do things. But now you can, because you have the access to the 36 hours in the day, which allows for more I want. So it's sort of like a catch-22.
This is a partial list of the directors you've worked with.
Okay.
Joe and Anthony Russo,
Yes.
Peyton Reed, Joss Whedon, Kenneth Branagh, Ridley Scott, Tim Burton, James Gunn. Is there something that all of these directors have that you think is magical or special, that brings out a sense of awe in them?
They're great storytellers. Great story. I mean, you missed a few, but all of the ones that we worked with are great story. The story is the key element. Regardless of all that surrounds what makes a big blockbuster or a big summer movie, at the core of it is a good story. And the one thing that when you say, how does it make you feel when you have audiences from all over the world, having that trust? Well, it's like when you go to this phenomenal restaurant and you know that this is that one meal that you'll have that year that you will remember. Well, there's a lot of pressure for that chef to do it day in and day out, because what if you have a bad day? For us, it's the same. The responsibility of telling a good story is what is at the core of what we do. Every single day. It weighs heavy, but that's what we do. It's not about, let's just blow some stuff, or let's add this, or no, it's not. I mean, it has nothing to do with the story. What are you doing? Although it will be fun to do it, and it's a nice avenue to get out of the issue is the story is not tight. And that's what we try. Listen, we don't get it right all the time, but we sure try.
Well, I think that we're in an era where special effects by all the studios and many filmmakers are seen as something to kind of put into the movie to elicit excitement from 12-year-old boys. Mm-hmm. Marvel's effects seem to be in service of the story. Is that a discipline that you bring to it, or is it just, it's never out of your thought process that if this is not a part of the story, I don't really need a truck blowing up?
I think for us, we are very aware that the spectacle element needs to be there, as you would have it in any James Bond movie. Part of being James Bond is he's sexy, he's slick, and there's a lot of action. But there is a journey for him. For us, it's the same. We just happen to have two things that we consistently stay true to. Do I want to watch that movie? I am not a comic book fan. I'm the hardest and the harshest critic. And is it funny enough? Because when we take 2 hours out of your life, we want to bring a little bit of joy. We want to show you a story that perhaps will touch you in a way that you didn't think. I mean, I've heard so many people say, I'm not into superhero movies, but I went to see Iron Man, or I went to see Guardians, or I went to see Ant-Man, or I went to see Civil War. What a different, Captain America 2, what a different movie. And you go, we got a new fan. because it is different. But you were engrossed in the story as opposed to it's just another superhero film.
I saw the suit for the first time. I couldn't believe it. But when I put it on, I stood differently. I looked at myself in the mirror and thought, oh my God, I'm actually in a superhero costume. And I felt it inside. It was incredible.
Ant-Man was a bit of a departure in that so much of it was his story and how he was going to organize this heist. Is this new? Was this a kind of a new approach of not necessarily being as big and explosive and kind of focusing more on this quiet character who was trying to have a relationship with his daughter? And
Well, we want to do things differently all the time. We want to make sure that we satisfy the wanting of the fans of characters they love, like Iron Man and Thor and Cap and Black Widow and all those characters and Hulk. But we also want to bring new friends to the dinner table. I think that's what keeps it fresh for us. I think that's what keeps people in a way interested in what are they going to do next. Listen, at some point we may have a misstep. And I think part of doing Guardians or doing Ant-Man or doing Doctor Strange is the fact that we have 6,000 properties in our library. They're not all the same. They're all very different. Some are quite obscure. Some are so off the beaten path that you go, what? But it's kind of fun to do something different so that we can creatively, ourselves, in our small creative core of people, we stay inspired. Otherwise, you're just doing the same thing. And when you become a factory, then there's a level of I don't care that goes in. We don't have that.
Is that part of the pressure that you were talking about? What is the pressure that you feel?
Well, the pressure that we feel is like we've been married to this audience now for almost 10 years. And it's the same as being married. And you want to stay sexy for your partner, you want to stay happy, you want to stay fresh. But you're married, and you're married for 10 years now. So how do you do that? How do you do that? I always say when you get married, you gain weight. We don't want to do that, although we love pizza, don't get me wrong. But we want to stay fresh. So we try to stay on our tippy toes and say, okay, how are we going to do something that is a little different? That may not be welcome 100%, but it's different enough that we're taking a risk. This is the time.
In the line of pressures, you were quoted as saying, global production is hard on families. We are like gypsies, right? We go out into the world for months chasing the location. When you are away for so long, a certain degree of loneliness sets in, and that is hard on families.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people maybe watching this aren't aware of the other side of the pressures involved in making a movie.
I always say that the only glamour of movie making is 30 feet of a red carpet once a year. For us, it's twice a year. It's not that glam. I mean, the media will put a glamour spin on it because it sells, but it is hard work. You do move around a lot. It is like a bunch of gypsies. I remember when we were doing Big Fish, we went to Montgomery, Alabama, and literally Big Fish is a movie about the circus.
One of my favorite movies of all time.
Me too.
Yeah.
Oh my
I
God,
love
that movie
Big
was
Fish.
so cool.
Yeah.
And we literally walked in and people said, oh, here comes the circus. And like, the movie is about the circus. So there was not only the Hollywood circus, but then the proper circus people that arrived. But it's like you walk in and the thing, there's something so awesome about a production crew walking in because there is this shorthand of what happens around you. Like there's a path, everyone knows what they're doing. And we walk in, we get it done, we walk out. And then we go into post and we do the same in post-production. It is hard for families, especially with all the tax incentives that continue to pop in different, not only states, but different countries. And for families to stay strong, it takes a huge support system that I think it gets overlooked. You know, I introduce every cast and crew, and I think about being there personally is to thank the families that supported the people that worked on our movies, because it takes the artists and it takes the families.
Like the military. You've talked about being a creative island.
Yes.
Explain your creative island. Tell us what that's like?
Well, you know, I'm from Argentina and I talk funny. So sometimes I said, well, there was a time when I said, listen, I may be on my own on this island, but I think blah, blah, blah. And they all looked at me like, what is she talking about? Often they say, what is she talking about? I'm like maybe it's my only feeling, but I think the scene should be this way. And they're like, go to your island. So I go, okay, fine, I'll just paddle to my island. But when I get there, you realize that my story point is real and you're going to go back to it. So from there, every time somebody says something that no one else agrees with, you go to your island. Everyone goes to the island. Director, producers, creator, everybody goes to everyone. The idea being that there's an open forum of creativity that is open for people to have opinions. But if the opinion is not of the core creative, it won't stick. So what you do is you paddle to your island. And I go there at least 90 times a day. I leave the kettle on, I leave the lights on, and I warm things up for whoever comes after me. And I always say, listen, you're going to the island now. And we laugh about it, but it is our collaboration way of saying, I hear what you're saying. For this particular moment, it doesn't suit the story. Paddle, paddle. That's our island.
And when you're through, come back and we.
Oh,
move on?
it's a quick journey.
It can be a quick
yes,
trip?
right there. Yeah, you did paddle for 10 minutes. You're back.
What makes a great creative person great?
Well, I think that that's a life journey. I think creativity is not something that happens in half an hour. I think the fact that if you say to me what makes a great painter or a great sculptor, you can have one masterpiece. But I think what makes a great creative great for a long period of time is that you continue to try enough times to have the rights and the wrongs, but creativity still flows. So for us, as a group, what is great is that we listen to each other. At no point anyone says, that's the dumbest idea I've ever heard. People go like, I hear your point, because we always challenge the why. There is no creative dictatorship. We lead in different parts of our journey, but when it comes down to talking about the story, we listen to each other. And I think that's a key element that you may not have elsewhere.
How would you describe creativity to young students who would say, well, what do you mean when you say creative? What does a creative person that separates them maybe from accountants or doctors or others?
I think that if you have a lack of limitation in your mind of what can happen. I think some of us are very logistical about certain things and then we go into the box. I think creative people believe there is a box somewhere, but they can't see the angles or the sides. And I think to not be constrained to form is what I think makes a creative person more successful. Now, sometimes it's not understood by certain people, but I think creativity is something that can be interpreted in many, many ways, and that's why it works in a few levels, because something that you would respond to, my friends may not respond to, and my 5-year-old friends may not respond to. You know what I mean? Like, whoever they are, creativity sort of gets you in a different way every time. I think that what I say to my 5-year-old is, throw it out there. Oh, but it's gonna get dirty. Yeah, that's the whole idea. Just let's dirty it up. To be able to have that let go of not being, well, it's not gonna fit on the table. Well, it'll go on the floor, but it'll be there. Just go, let go. I mean, having that let go, you see it with children, because parents assume that as a child, that's what you need to do. And what we continue to do at Marvel is we sort of approach it that way. It's like, let's just go like a Pollock painting and see what happens. And then you go, that's really cool.
How do you use 3D? What does it do for you? And we've got high frame rate, we've got laser projection, we have high dynamic range, we have all these new technologies, but I noticed that 48% of the tickets sold the opening night of Ant-Man were 3D tickets.
Yeah.
So the fans love it. What do you think it does, and how do you use it to make it impactful?
I don't like using anything technical to trick the audience, but the idea always being that whatever venue we can use to enhance the story is what makes the story better. So, especially when you have a story about a teeny tiny guy, it allows you to see the world that we all step on day in and day out in a very different way. Ant-Man was all about scale and the macro of it all, and how do you show a piece of rug that is as boring as it is that you step on every day, but you can make it interesting? How do you show the bottom of a bathtub in a way that it doesn't feel like a bathtub? I think for us, Guardians of the Galaxy perhaps, and Ant-Man in stereo, it enhanced the story. We don't 100% think of, in this particular moment, what 3D thing can we do every day, but once in a while in visual effects reviews, I'm like, why are we having that going this way and not this way, where it's in 3D is gonna make 100% the shot much more interesting and more fun. So we try to do a lot of that. But again, for us, is about how does it relate to the story? How does it make the story better? How does it forward the story?
Half of the movie ticket buyers are female. Half the population of Los Angeles County is female. Half of the global population is female. And yet Hollywood, but especially the movie industry, seems to continually be an environment where if you walk on a set or you walk into a post-production facility, you see almost no women. Why? It's not the ill faith of the people, I think, in leadership roles, is it? Or what is it that we aren't doing well as an industry that we ought to call ourselves on and do something about?
Well, I think, listen, this is clearly, it's an important topic for me, and we can probably talk about it for hours. I think it's a large combination of a lot of things. Some are big, some are small. I think from the time that little girls are not, are taught very gender-oriented tasks. So girls play with dolls. I think my daughter has one doll and she's 5, but she has a lot of building materials. We build in our home. By design, my partner is a designer as well, so by designing our home, we allowed the 5-year-old girls to build alongside the boys. I think if you start that with the younger generations, then when you get to college time, then women will look into math and science and technology as something that they feel that they can succeed in. But if the one thing we do, a lot of the times, we all want to succeed, men, women. We all want to have a successful path. We tend to do the things we're good at, right? That's why some people are excellent at work and not so excellent at home. Why? Because you spend all day at work, and when you go home, you feel odd, and you feel like you don't belong, and you feel like you have to work really hard. I'm like, well, yeah, but you're at work 14 hours. You show up at home 2 hours. You think you're just going to succeed by being a parent or a partner? With little girls, they don't have the access that little boys have all the time. So you cut back 20 years later when they're in college, and maybe the choices they make are more in communication. Other skills that do get, women are allowed to process much more than men are, although I encourage every man to process more. So then you see that women take those avenues. Let's say that is someone like me that didn't listen to anybody telling, you know, I go where my heart goes and I do what I want to do. There's a lot of women that way. And then you encounter the wall of men that are not used to having women around, and they think they have to act differently. I always say that I'm the only woman at Marvel, not the only woman proper, but the only woman in the higher ranks. I always say the boys consistently forget I'm a woman, consistently. It's I'm not a man or a woman, I'm Victoria. And I think if more people, when they are allowed at the tables, could leave the gender aside and they could say, okay, you're all invited because you have good ideas. Stop tippy-toeing, stop walking on eggshells, stop. You stop feeling that they don't like you because you're a woman, and you stop acting that way because you think she's saying that because she is a woman. What's the best idea? What's the best approach? And if it is a woman that says it, so be it. I think the younger generations are getting a chance at dealing in a more collaborative way. I think Hollywood, by and large, has always been an industry of white men, and I think that hopefully with new generations and new approaches, that is changing a lot. Being a woman is not difficult. I think it can be if you take it on as such. I think also women, if they want to have children at some very important time in their careers, and it's usually where you're either at the brink of making that leap, or when you made that leap, but you have to hold on to it because there's somebody trying to nip you from it, you want to have a baby. And that's a life-changing moment. Because sometimes when you have a child, whether you birth it or adopt it, you may not come back to the same level of, this is what I want. I think men have a different way of being able to compartmentalize parenting that is different than women.
So an extra effort has always got to be made to make sure that women are recruited into these jobs.
Yeah, listen, I heard that, I think it was Sheryl Sandberg that was asked, how do you do the job? How do you do this huge job and still be a parent? And she said, how is it that no other CEO gets asked that, that is male? But isn't parenting both for men and women? So that alone as a question to someone like her is like, it's very much telling of where society is, that moms should not be holding that job. But dads, of course, that's what they do. I hire women all the time, and I try to provide the best arrangement for those that want to have children that can come back and still be a part of our production team.
You told ABC News you have to stay with it and go at it, and you have to knock on those doors every day. You do not take no for an answer because my no is somebody else's yes. Everybody's life is different, and everybody's journey is different. The best place to start is at the bottom. Do not lose faith if that takes time. Is that talk about your advice to younger people?
Listen, I think there's a place for each and everyone's uniqueness. There is a place. You just have to find it. It's like finding a best friend. It's like finding a good therapist. It's like finding a partner in life. It's like finding a sport that you love and you're good at it. You don't just give up because you bought a racket and you can't hit the ball. Or you might, but then the next day you take baseball, and the next day you take soccer, and the next day you take golf. Just because I say no, that doesn't mean anything. I've said no to plenty of people that have come back later. And I'll just tell them, you're not ready. You're not ready for what I have. But I tell you how you can go at it and get back here. And I've done that a few times where I send people off to go gain the experience and then return when they have it. And I've stayed steady in my promise to hire them back. I don't believe, if you, in Hollywood, if you can stay steady in where you think you fit, eventually you will find your fit. The problem is you must understand the reasons why you're doing it. I think people get confused sometimes of why they want to do a certain job. And you need to get to the core of why you want to do the job that you want to do. Once you know that, you will find your fit. But when you're confused and you hear no, it's like, well, because you're confused. I believe that I've been told no plenty, and I've landed where I needed to land. But you have to keep at it, and you have to keep at it.
Did you know that you wanted to work in the movie business? At what point did you say, this is what I want to do?
Well, I studied psychology and I studied theater. And the theater in Argentina saved my life. Because I was very much a part of the political movement during the military dictatorship that would go out in the streets and will go have demonstrations, and I will hold the banner, and I will hold the banner in the front, not the back. My mom used to ask me all the time, would you please go 2 rows back? Because when they shoot at the front row. And I said, well, somebody has to hold the banner. And that's what I understood. When I went to the theater, for many reasons, I found that there was safety in the theater. And the reason why I didn't get killed in 2 or 3 demonstrations that happened was because I was in the theater at that time. But I would have been in that front row. So when I studied the theater, I realized that that had a sense of home. And when I walked into a theater, I feel it. When I walk into a set, I feel it. It's like when people go to a bakery and you smell that smell and it takes you back to a place of safety. For me, the smell of a theater or a soundstage is like, and my body just goes, so I thought, well, I should study that. But you can't make a living in LA in theater. So I thought that maybe you should be acting. And so I did a couple of soaps, and you're too thin, too fat, too this, too this. You're Latin? No, you're not Latin. You're white? No, you're not white. Are you brown? Well, you're not brown enough. Well, you have an accent. Well, you don't have an accent. Well, and I said, who makes the decisions? The producers. That's what I'm going to go do.
The Close-Up is produced by the Advanced Imaging Society in Hollywood and powered by Barco.